Okay. I'm going to call it to order. Roll call.
Arnold,
Here.
Beckley,
Here.
Parcapici,
Here.
Flores,
Here.
Kotsinis,
Here.
Hamilton, Sutton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Warren Newport Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning. Next is public comment. So the Board of Trustees allows up to 20 minutes for public comment. Individuals should introduce themselves and speak on any library issues, not to exceed 3 minutes. If several of you know you're here for the same purpose, we ask that you designate one person to speak for your group. Those who want their remarks added to the board record must provide a copy to the board secretary before speaking. Okay. Who would like to go first? Pardon?
They are in order in the orange paper.
Oh. All right, first person is Nathaniel Gorham.
The microphone is.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel.
Hold on, Nathaniel, we'll get that microphone for you.
No, it's not. It's not. Oh, yeah. Wait, just probably just raise your voice because the microphone is for the video recording.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm a sixth grader at Woodland, and I'm here to talk about the discontinuation of the bookmobile to neighborhood stops. The bookmobile provides a community, people love it, and even though they go to the library, they still go to the bookmobile. When the bookmobile goes to events, it is a frenzied rush to get the best books.
Hold on one moment, we'll adjust.
It's on the mic or no? It goes into the video.
Okay. One second, I'm sorry.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Do you mind starting over so other people can hear you too?
Sure.
Thanks.
Just a little
I
bit.
think he should go back because it's
Yeah,
coming
back
off
away
his
just a little.
speakers.
Testing.
Could he?
Yeah, that's better.
Take the microphone back too,
Uh-uh.
because the speaker, it's going back.
Yeah, it's too much.
Sorry, Nathaniel, we'll get you really loud.
Yeah.
That's
You're awesome, too.
perfect. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel. I'm a sixth grader at Woodland, and I'm here to talk about the discontinuation of the bookmobile to neighborhood stops. The bookmobile provides a community, people love it, and even though they go to the library, they still go to the bookmobile. When the bookmobile goes to events, it is a frenzied rush to get the best books. And it is so impersonal, and the fact that most people are not even from the same library makes checking out much more difficult. Most people that go to the bookmobile don't get to be friends with the librarians. A lot of people are very unhappy. A lot of people are very unhappy with the change, and it is the purpose of the bookmobile to give books to our library's community. Only sending it to events completely undermines that concept. Through personal experience, the bookmobile often has books that the main library doesn't, and having it gives you the chance to get books even if you don't have the time to go to the main library. The fact that the library is getting rid of the neighborhood stops for the bookmobile makes me very unhappy, and I hope that you will reconsider this decision.
Thank you. next person, Faith Savanu.
Hello, I am Faith Savanu, and I am a Gurnee resident for 11 years. I am here today to make a plea to continue the neighborhood bookmobile services. I was made aware of the upcoming change in services during my last bookmobile stop on Tuesday, ironically the 50th birthday of the library. The librarians handed me a flyer and said that their next visit would be their last, and I could see the sadness in their eyes. I was quite surprised because this was the first I'd heard, and I had not seen a public statement either on the Facebook page or in the newsletter, and there was no specific reason provided for this discontinuation. However, this is the first information I've received in this letter on the table. I've been in Gurnee for 11 years, and I'm a frequent patron. I have 2 daughters, Jessica, 7, and Lucy, 3. And one of the delights in raising them has been to introduce them to the joy of reading. Both my daughters love visiting our neighborhood bookmobile, which is conveniently parked outside our next-door neighbor's house. Even in the dark and snowy weather, we are greeted with a warm and friendly face. We run into other neighborhood children there doing the exact same thing with their families, too. My children interact with Doreen and Fern, and they have a wonderful ability to connect with them and provide personalized book recommendations. This past year, I set a SMART goal of reading 75 books, and I'm proud to say that I surpassed this goal by reaching 80. The Warren Newport Public Library and the bookmobile services had a direct impact on this accomplishment, and I want to express that I'm appreciative to the bookmobile librarians specifically for their support, and when I shared this news with them at my last meeting with them, they were very delighted and excited about me achieving this. I am grateful to them for always having my stack of hold books ready every time I visit, and I have already posted on my Facebook page about this goal that I achieved and credited the Doreen and Fern specifically. I am requesting that the neighborhood bookmobile services be restored, or at a minimum, please elicit more input from the community or consider alternatives such as reducing the number of stops or reducing the frequency to still have some service to the neighborhood communities. And finally, I contend that removing services that directly impact our community is not moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, next, Edwin Cummings.
Good evening. My name is Ted Cummings. I go by Ted as a nickname for Edwin. I'm a Gurnee resident. I live on Presidential Drive on the west side of town. I've lived in Lake County for about 30 years. I've been a Gurnee resident within the library district here for about 25, 27 years. I've been an adamant supporter of the library and the things it does. And I'm here tonight to talk about this discontinuation of the bookmobile neighborhood stops. It's something our family has utilized for many, many years. From when my children were very young, I've raised my family here. I continue to raise my family here. And from the time that they started to walk, we enjoyed the resource and amenities of the bookmobile. Now, the reason I am really disagreeing with the concept of eliminating the book neighborhood stops is the bookmobile provides 3 really, really important things. And I think it doesn't really measure up to what you can do at a neighborhood, an event stop. But I'm sure that there will be analysis and discussion about that back and forth. But the 3 things that I think that you need to understand and recognize are these. 1, it really, really does promote patron engagement and involvement at the grassroots level. My family's an example of that. My children, from when they were able to even to start to walk, before they could read, enjoyed that benefit. And they were introduced to it. To drag them out and to go to an event or to a park is a little bit different. Not that we did not do that, but it is much different. The second primary purpose that I think that the bookmobile, the neighborhood stop serves, relates to serving potentially disenfranchised individuals. So the west side of town, where I live, is a pretty good distance from this library. Not horrible, but it is something that is a project for us in families that are raising young children. The bookmobile gave us the opportunity to engage and utilize resources without having to make a specialized trip, especially on weeknights when we have school going on. You have people who are limited in their ability to have transportation. It brings it right to their neighborhood to do that. And you also have other disenfranchised potential individuals. The other thing that's the third important thing that I think that the neighborhood stops cultivates and allows for is a personalized interaction with library staff. The interaction experience we have here at the main library. You guys have a wonderful staff here. My hat's off to them. I admire what they do. but it is not the same as what happens on a neighborhood stop. The staff that handles our neighborhood stops knows our reading desires, what our needs are, feeds back into us with that. It's changed over the last 25 years too, by the way. We've had people come and go, and we've still, developed that new relationship, but it is something that is key. Great resources here, but when I come in here, I'm just a number at the deli counter with a ticket. A little different. So for those reasons, I really would ask that you reconsider this process of eliminating the neighborhood stops. There's got to be a solution here. Perhaps it's something of a hybrid, where we're going to jointly reduce it. We're going to look at different events that can be gone to. But I think that something that would help that is some feedback from.
Excuse me, your 3 minutes is over.
Oh, my goodness, that went fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
All right, well, let me just conclude with this. I'm an ambassador for the bookmobile. I learned of this last night. I think there's something wrong with that process. So I would ask you, let's work together and come up with a solution that we can make this all work so it works for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, Megan Nysick.
Hello, my name is Megan Nysick. I live in Grand Woods. That is almost the farthest away that you can get from this library. And I've lived in Gurnee my whole life. I usually did come to the library before then, but then I moved to Grand Woods, and I found that going to the bookmobile was an easier solution. It was a solution for me and my husband, and I am very disappointed that you guys have decided to discontinue the bookmobile, and I do hope that you guys reconsider, because I did try to go to the Lake Villa Library that was closer to me. However, I did not find it to be as good as your hold system or the new movie system or the just going in there and having the experience that the bookmobile has provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the last one is Diane Taunton.
Hi, good evening. Oh, don't mind me if I get winded because I had COVID over the holidays. It's really admirable that the library continues to be innovative, seeking new ways to serve the community. However, it should not be at the exclusion and expense of necessary services for the tax-paying patrons. The library's mission statement, the primary bullet point is providing the community with access to information. The neighborhood bookmobile provides convenience, safety for the residents, maximizes self-sufficiency, and you need to support and not marginalize the neighborhood patrons by removing their access to the neighborhood services. Unfortunately for this, there wasn't any input. You did not canvass the patrons that would be impacted by this change. Unfortunately, you did that, and I wish that something can be done to include us. I'm certain there are ways to serve the targeted communities that you wanted to serve without excluding and marginalizing the patrons in the neighborhoods for the neighborhood bookmobiles. Secondly, the pandemic isn't over. CDC COVID level, community level for Lake County is still medium. There are weekly hospitalization revisions. When you force people, elderly who are elderly and the people with kids, to pack up to go to another location to be exposed to larger groups of people, you're exposing their risk. It's admirable that the bookmobile had that event. 300 people attended. Great for exposure for the bookmobile. However, 300 people exposure to for high-risk elderly and the young is not good in the community. Pandemic's not over, it's not going to be over for a long time. At least when it comes into the neighborhood, you're limited to access to other people for the pandemic. One thing about your policy number 4025, it states under crisis communication. Warren Newport Public Library will use these opportunities to promote its image as a public institution that is transparent. It's unfortunate that this change, in effect, was done without transparency and is aware of issues and considers its patrons first. You didn't consider the patrons who use this service. And you should not do so in a manner that excludes access to the services and resources of your existing patrons. There's a disservice to patrons who have come to rely on access to the library services through the neighborhood bookmobile. Don't make the neighborhood stops disappear.
I'm sorry, the 15.
Please reconsider.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Ann Hazen, and I live in Gurnee for the last 29 years. I'm with my bookmobile friends. I'm with my book club friends tonight, and we're here because we just heard last night about the discontinuation of the neighborhood stops, and it was so sad to hear that for many different reasons. I remember with my children coming to the library when they were small. It was very overwhelming for them, the size of the library. And, you know, we didn't even take any books out. I remember the first time we came. But we introduced them to the library through the bookmobile in our neighborhood in Pembroke. And it's a smaller area. The small children felt more comfortable. And it was just such a no-brainer to introduce them to something where they're more comfortable. And in time, we were able to take them to the library where they felt, you know, more confident after that bookmobile experience. And I think that says a lot, introducing children at the right age to the library. The other thing is I am a realtor with Beard & Warner, and I've been a realtor for almost 25 years. And I always boast to people that are considering buying a home in Gurnee about the bookmobile experience and how wonderful it's been for our family and our neighborhood. And I wish that you would really consider the neighborhood stops. Maybe you can't do it as often as you do, but please consider keeping that on the agenda. Do you want to say anything else?
I mean, we all feel strongly, that's why we're all here. We love the bookmobile.
Mm-hmm.
I actually sent you all an email this morning, so you have my point of view also.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for Debbie hearing about it, and I found it on Nextdoor, and it just made me so sad, because we want to be involved, you know, with the decisions, and we hope that you reconsider.
And we gave up our book club night.
Yes,
To be here.
I just have one thing to say. I think it's so tragic for people who want access to books for a library to deny them of that. And I did write that in my email. I hope you're all right.
Okay. Thank you for any consideration.
Anyone else? Okay. All right, written correspondence going around?
We just have thank you cards from the library staff to the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. So we're on to the consent. Anyone want to remove anything? All right. Who would like to make the motion?
So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Ms. Mirti? Could that go off now, because it's echoing? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that'd be
Yeah,
probably a good idea.
yeah, it's kind of echoing. Thank you a lot.
Do we just want to turn off the mic?
Yeah, we'll turn it off.
But not just the one mic.
These
We-
ones are now then,
Yeah, these are kind of,
if
We
she
need
turns off
these
the
still
mic, then people
for-
can,
The video.
but I'm concerned they won't be able to hear us.
We'll speak loudly.
Andrea, you have a good voice. They have a mic.
okay, let's see, we're on to President's Report, page 6. Questions, comments, concerns? Other trustees have a report? No? Okay, Ryan, you're up.
Yeah, a couple things that are under the executive director's report. Just wanted to update you, the on-site, inside capital needs assessment report. I do have a preliminary report, which is just in time for budget season, so we can start to take a look at that in the whole, the first Tuesday in February. Also, there's typically a legislative breakfast on President's Day, but ILA is doing a little differently this year, and they're going to do some type of virtual legislative meetup for all legislators, because there's been a lot of movement in Springfield, so I'll let the board know when that event is planned, that it's still to be determined. Any questions about the report?
I had some this time. Let's start with on page 8. What is the Gurnee Police and Fire Assist that we had?
Let's see, where's that one, George? Is that the
Very
one
bottom.
that's there? That's the, would be the patron suspension, the adult male, when, basically multiple warnings about sleeping, refusing to cooperate with staff. And so when someone is not
Okay.
to refuse, unfortunately, that's called a police.
Just checking to see what was going on. And furniture in adult area was moved to alleviate security concerns.
That had to do with the fact that there were some students after school that were kind of out of sight of their camera, so we strategically moved the furniture just so we could keep an eye on it, essentially.
And then one last question. I know I'm asking a lot of questions today. On page 10, under information technology, only ILL service has not resumed after ISP cutover. What is the status of that? Are we?
That finally is fixed. It took a tremendous amount of work between several players beyond our control to get it fixed, but it's finally fixed.
Okay. That's all I had. Anyone else?
I just wanted to ask about hosting the teen book club at at Warren. How did that work?
So our teen librarian worked with the librarians over at the high school, and we were having some, we just wanted to collaborate a little bit more
Yeah.
and bring you those discussions to where the teens were, so over lunch breaks.
Over lunch break, I was wondering how that happened. Cool.
Anyone else? Okay, so we're on to business, page 18. Semi-annual review. Would you like to make the motion?
I move that the board accept the semi-annual review of closed executive session minutes as presented.
I'll second that. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay, quiet reading room.
Yeah, so we are back on budget for the quiet reading room. For those of you that are not aware, the members of the public are here tonight, we are doing a renovation of the quiet reading room, and it is going to be exclusively funded through private funds. As the board knows, we received the grant ARPA funds, thanks to the Village of Gurnee for that project, in addition to private donations. So we have worked with the architect to make some changes to that to get that back on budget. The board will recall when we talked about the last meeting, we were well under budget, tens of thousands of dollars over budget. So we managed to get that down. So we are meeting with her later this week, and I'm hoping to be able to show share some more details with the board at the February committee of the whole.
Is it gonna be warm and cozy?
That's intense. So.
Anyone else? Okay, building systems.
We are about to embark on a major capital project. Our climate control system is close to end of life. So we met with World Engineering, and they are going to design work for the next couple of months, and then that project will go out to bid in early April. Then the idea is to open the bids prior to making the whole. World Engineering Group will give recommendations to the board, and at the May regular board meeting, the board can review those and then select who to grant the bid to. Even though we wanted to move on this sooner, it's relatively good timing because the way that the time this project will work is that contractors will want to pick up this work because it will be right after this school season. We'll still be able to get everything but the RTUs and before the cooling season, and RTUs are kind of a mystery. They're on back order because there's such a demand across the country for those. But we'll get the boiler project fixed, so we'll still be in good shape. We replaced several heat exchangers, as the board is aware, in the fall, and it's Miguel's assessment that the system is in good shape, at least for a couple of years. So I think the timing's going to work out well in terms of getting this done. Any questions at this point about that project?
Will we be able to get what was supposed to get done this year before the fiscal year ends?
No. In fact, I don't think any of this will get done this fiscal year because I imagine the first work will happen late July, early August, because there's no reason for us to put stipulations in that we wanted to get done sooner because it would just raise the cost of the project because we'll be competing with the schools at that point to do that.
So we'll watch the budget and not spend that money so we can put it in next year's budget?
Yeah, essentially we'll end up rolling that over in the special reserve fund.
Will we be able to get done before the snow flies next year?
Everything but the RTUs. That will still be okay.
Anyone else?
Are you sure we'll still be okay?
That's according to Miguel, who is an HVAC expert, and it feels the conditions of those are still, we'll get a couple more years of mileage out of this. So, can I guarantee it? Absolutely not.
Cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic.
Okay, anything else? All right, mobile services update.
First of all, I want to address the audience. Thank you for coming. I used to say that anyone that walks through the library is the most magical place in the community because anyone that walks through those doors is empowered to change their lives for the better in both big ways and small. But that doesn't just extend to the library. It extends to, throughout our reach in the community, including the bookmobile. And there were a lot of examples of that this evening. I myself grew up in a town of 800 people, Findlay, Illinois. Where our claim to fame in Illinois is we're the smallest school ever to win the state championship in boys high school basketball. So maybe you've heard of us. But when I was little in Findlay, thanks to the Rolling Prairie Library System at Decatur, Illinois, which is about 45 minutes away, they came to my small town, and I was, as a boy, able to get a library service thanks to that bookmobile. So I completely understand the impact it has on the community and the lives of individuals. So I guess that means my perspective is a little bit different than yours. And I want to share this with you to talk about our process by making this decision, because this is a data-driven decision. A lot of our bookmobile patrons, for example, we know are users of both the bookmobile and the main library. But beyond that point, when we look at the numbers, unfortunately they're low. I appreciate everyone's passion, but it doesn't change the fact that we have a incredible needs in this community. We serve 67,000 people, 55 square miles. And we hired a community engagement manager last year. We realized there are many, many of these individuals that we're not reaching that deserve to have that same special experience that you and your families have had, that I had when I was a kid, and that we just don't reach, that have transportation issues, as was discussed, that have access issues to the library, that we haven't connected yet, that we haven't been able to connect our amazing staff, who you know, with people in the community. And that's the intent behind these changes. It's not to disfranchise anyone or take away any services. I'm well aware of the impact it has on individuals. But when you look at the data, we average weekly 70 visits on the bookmobile. It's not a lot, unfortunately. and we average about 210 circulations on the bookmobile. It's an expensive cost. I did a cost analysis today. For each visitor, every time someone comes in the library, it's $20 of taxpayer dollars that we spend to serve them. And I think it's $5.85 a serve. So it's an expensive service. We have a lot of needs, and so thus we were forced to make some tough decisions. And we're very excited about this model. And we think what this model accomplishes is not only serving those that we're not serving, but also continuing services to all of you. Granted, it will look a little different, but we plan on having stops at neighborhood parks, for example, in the summer, and other events as well. It will allow us to expand our services, so now when the bookmobile goes to a preschool, it's not just kids being able to go on the bookmobile and check out items, which is great, but it also allows us to do programs at preschools like story times. There's a lot of examples of that in the handout I think a lot of you have. So that's what I wanted to share with not just the board, but with all of you tonight. The board has the update on the changes to mobile services, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Based on the comments tonight, it sounds like we're eliminating neighborhood stops. I thought we were just changing where they were going to be, not eliminating them altogether.
Well, it's a change of service model where I think, I don't want to argue semantics, and I don't want to say we're not eliminating stops, but we are, we will be going to neighborhoods, but not the model we use now. For example, this summer we plan to go to neighborhood parks, so we'll be serving the neighborhoods, but not in the same way. We only have 2 neighborhood stops right now that we serve double-digit patrons. So that's really the dilemma that we have. It's for the impact that we're having, it's a small impact. You, Andrea, as well as anyone knows, our budget's super tight, and to continue this service, we're also giving up a lot on the other end by not reaching those people we haven't been able to reach.
I mean, we've talked about this for a long time, that because our district is so large with 2 townships, that our bookmobile really is our branch library. And I want to make sure that people still have access, and I always thought it would be really super cool to use the bookmobile, but I've had to literally chase it down, not chase it, but follow it with my car, because I wanted to try out the bookmobile. And one time there was a, what's it called, Captain Underpants book, and it was on the bookmobile, so I had to go to the bookmobile to get it. But I always have my house that I can walk to the library, because the library is that important to me. I'm not saying it's not important to everybody else, just that's what I do. But I just want to make sure that everybody's being served, and maybe we can more clearly describe what it is with a map and how the stops are I just really want to understand how we're going from one service plan to another service plan that everybody can have access, but also maybe we also need to make sure that people understand what other services are available. What other, like, people can get books delivered to their home by filling out a form if they're not mobile, or there was one winter I was potty training kids and I needed books, and I had 3 toddlers, and I called the library and talked to Children's Youth Services desk, and then I could came in the middle of the night and the door popped open and there was a pile of books for me, because I just couldn't take 3 toddlers to the library in the winter to get the books that I wanted to stop changing diapers with. So I just really think we need to understand what it is before we make the changes, and maybe more time to help the community understand, and me personally.
Can I ask a question based on what you said earlier? You said the cost per circ in the library. Do we know the cost per circ on the bookmobile?
I think you misspoke, Brian. It was the cost per
Oh,
circ
per
of
the
bookmobile.
bookmobile.
Oh,
We do
okay.
have the
All
numbers
right.
for the library as well that we can
Okay.
compare.
Well, I agree with Andrea very strongly. I have lived here 30 years and also took my kids to the bookmobile. We also have talked about the bookmobile replacement and how much life is left in that thing. So remind me what we talked about, what we thought the life of the bookmobile is currently what the cost of a new one is?
Yeah, so the current bookmobile, it has, a few years left.
That's what I was thinking, it was a couple years, but
Right.
can you remind me what the replacement cost, or we thought?
It varies, but you're looking at a bare minimum of $250,000,
Okay.
about $300,000.
Because I was thinking around 400, that we kind of talked
it could
about it.
be.
It's out there,
It
and we're
certainly could be.
nervous about how we're
Yeah.
gonna afford it.
Mhm.
It depends on the size of the vehicle as well.
About the
That would
size.
be-
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, because these are custom-made vehicles, and depending on what you add or don't add to it, it changes the cost.
Yeah.
How many years are we away from paying off the bonds?
2029.
2029, so we gotta hold on for 6 more years, hopefully get 6 more years out of it, because we have big debt service.
Yeah.
$650,000 a year we're paying on debt service, principal and interest, and doing it without raising taxes, with inflation, and it's really a challenge, but we're hoping to keep it going for 6 more years.
Eke it out.
Maybe you are, Andrea. I'm more realistic than that. I don't think it's going to last 6 more years. We can try, but and no matter what, there's a big lead time on these vehicles too. So even if we wanted to replace it tomorrow, and we had the funds to do so, it would take 2 years to replace it. It's not something that happens overnight.
So is the breaking down of the bookmobile and the cost to keep it running, is that part of this decision, or is it just simply redeploying services to make it available to the most number of people as often as possible?
Well, it's really the latter. And looking at the numbers, being a good steward of taxpayer dollars, I mean, listen, I know some in this room will argue you can't put a price on the impact of the services, but the idea is to take our resources and make a greater impact with the limited resources we have. I mean, we're talking 70 individuals a week for the bookmobile.
And how much does the bookmobile cost us a year? It's still, those costs aren't going away, but
Right. Oh, the annual cost, I don't know, like I said, I did some math, it's like $20 per person, just for sort of one person, it's $20 a visit.
Well, so Ryan, if we're using facts and data, this is not necessarily a permanent decision either. If we make this change and then the facts and data don't support it, are we open to moving back?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is an annual process. For those of you that don't know, there may have been some stagnation and changes of routes, but this is an annual process. This is nothing new. Operationally, we always look at this every year and make this decision. So this is not a new, I mean, this is a big change. But honestly, looking at the data, one we probably should have made quite some time ago.
when is this change expected to take place?
February.
February. Can we push it, because it's already January 17th. Can we push it back one more month till we understand it better? I mean, or, because this is the last board meeting until February.
I don't
There's
know, I
no
can-
board meetings in between.
I don't know that I can answer that because we'd have to look at the obligations we made for services. So, and keep in mind that there's a lot of staff training that needs to be involved. For those of you in the room that don't know, there was some change in leadership in the department, and we have new leadership in the department, and there's a lot of training that needs to take place for staff in terms of be able to provide services that we want to provide through that department. So to do it, we would have to look into what obligations we have on the calendar, and to be honest. I'm not equipped to answer that question at this time, and I can get you an answer.
Can you give us some more information to understand how it's going to change?
Sure. Specifically, Andrea, what would you like to know?
I'd like to know, how close people are to the bookmobile, those who want to give their children the bookmobile experience, who want to, how are they going to pick the services that were essential to them? I don't know if they were getting their book club books at the bookmobile, they can come to the library and get them, or, what services won't people be getting? I mean, I've always generally come to the library. I want it open 24 hours a day, and unfortunately, our budgets don't allow for that, but we as the board would like to give everybody everything, but we're also restrained with the dollars we have. I just really want to understand.
So you said, how close are people to the bookmobile, and what services won't people get?
Yeah, what services do they have now at the bookmobile that they won't have in the future? I mean, those who may not be able to get to the library, are we contacting? If we only have 70 patrons using the bookmobile, and our mobile librarians know all of them, they might know the ones that may have trouble physically getting to here. Can we be proactive and talk to those patrons and maybe help them fill out the
No,
form
absolutely.
that they can get books
Yeah, of
delivered to their
course.
homes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
One comment on my side. I don't really agree with this decision, I'll be honest. I'm very skeptical with the new model because I actually like walking with the bookmobile myself. One thing I will say, I don't know if the data we're using is accurate because we've been having so many issues with reliability of the bookmobile, with reliability of staffing for the bookmobile. It's been off-road almost as often as it's been on-road the last couple of years. I don't know if the reason we have low numbers is because we're not delivering or because there's actually people not interested. I think part of the problem is people don't know how to get to the bookmobile. They don't know if it's actually going to be there when they want it. We don't do a good job of publicizing our bookmobile schedule. We don't do a very good job at all of publicizing bookmobile stops. How do you know when you move into a neighborhood where your bookmobile stop is? It's not like there's a sign at most of them. We keep that dynamic, understandably, because we want to be able to move them as needed for our population centers. But I think we've kept it a little too dynamic, to the point where we don't have reliable patronage. This is a mobile branch. Mobile branches, though they are mobile, have to still have some physical locus.
So George, you want to know what routes we've had in place, for longevity, so you can
Put it this way. You're looking at data from the last year. What happens if we look at data from the last 10 years and look at how it's trending?
Yeah, if you look at the last year, 2018, 2019, the data is certainly better, but it is not dramatically better. In terms of, in your comment on promoting the service, I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, that's in my multiple decades on a career in public libraries. We've talked about this at every library I've ever been, about promoting the library. And at the end of the day, it turns out that word of mouth is the best way to do it. We did start the ambassadors program, and Ted alluded to that. He was one of the ambassadors. And I did contact them all last week. And I'm sorry, Ted, we didn't connect on that.
No, I didn't. I don't remember seeing anything. I actually called you today, and I didn't get a call back.
And I emailed you back because
You did?
Yes.
I didn't see
So
that.
I apologize, we didn't connect. But,
No worries. Anyway.
but the intent of that was, okay, and it was our great mobile services team that came up with the idea, let's drum up some more support for the bookmobile, and that did not lead to an increase in numbers, the word of mouth. So, I mean, that's a pretty powerful way to drum up support for a service.
It is,
when
but
you're having
you
people on your
still need people to know when it's going to physically be there. You need a where and a when, or somebody can't join it. It's only there for 20 minutes at a time.
Right. And also one of the issues, I mean, even if you just want to look at one of the flaws with the model, if nothing else, even if the numbers were through the roof and money wasn't an issue, that it was too short of a stop. It's a very short time. And,
We can talk about, increasing size of stops and decreasing number of stops. Consolidating is one option. We haven't even considered that at this point. I'm looking at the budget numbers, on page 73 if you're wondering, Andrea. They haven't changed. These are the same budget numbers we've approved that we've been working with.
that's like operational within the department materials. It doesn't include staff costs or.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at regular salaries. That's one of the
it
line
does have it
items.
on that. Which page, George?
73?
George, to pick up on your point, though, what other scenarios or models did we consider before kind of landing here?
What's that?
What other scenarios, models did we consider?
For
Changes to the service? We're only proposing one, right? But there must have been other things we considered.
I mean, I think we've considered.
We've considered pretty much everything. So we are part of forums. There's a group for bookmobiles throughout the country. There are only over 600 in the United States. So it's a community that really does talk a lot. COVID forced everyone to make a lot of changes. You mentioned, you know, there's the fear of enclosed spaces, groups. So during COVID, mobile services, outreach departments transitioned to programming outside. It was so successful that those who hadn't done it before aren't going back. It's really the move of the future. And then we looked at, because our bookmobile is aging, what it would look like in terms of replacement. So when we started looking at that, Ryan found that 90% of the new bookmobiles that are being sold are smaller vehicles. They're flexible because the larger ones require special licenses. The license is an issue. So we mentioned, you know, we've been off-road. We're off-road for maintenance issues, but there have been times we're off-road because we don't have drivers. We have 3 drivers that can drive our large bookmobile.
And in the 8 years since I've been here, anytime there was an opening in the department, we try to hire for it. Like anything else, if I ever have a full-time position in any department, I have several applications. If I have a full-time position in mobile services or required driving, it was like pulling teeth to get people to apply because people were so intimidated, even though we provided the training to drive. So it's one of those, and especially now with trying to find employment, that's staffing is an issue. You know, we are not officially part of CCS, but I mean, in terms of starting a system, we're members of CCS. We're one of only 29 libraries that have a bookmobile. We're the only CCS library that has a bookmobile. So really, it's one of those things a lot of libraries are turning away from, and those that still have the service have gone to a model like at Racine Kenosha, which is more the model we're proposing. You know, so there's been a lot of success with that, and you know, looking at the numbers, wanting to serve as many people as possible, and reaching the goals that we have. That's where we're moving the model. And that's where I'm struggling because I see the impact this service has, but it's a small group of people. We have 67,000 people to serve.
We've talked about the issues with the device, you know, the actual hardware. And yeah, that thing's a boat. And no, we're not going to get something that size when it comes time to replace it. Because it's impractical. We know it's impractical. We've been talking about that for a while. But, you know, there's been a lot of advancements in technology in the last decade, especially with, you know, the ability to put more things into smaller spaces. You don't need as big a bookmobile to carry as many books to as many people anymore. And I think we can keep the same level of service we have without having something that size, which would alleviate a lot of the problems we're having with staffing.
We don't disagree with that at all. But the issue is we have the vehicle that we have right now. We have new staff that are not trained. We know that we need to serve more people, like based on everything we've done in terms of evaluation. So while we get additional, you know, drivers trained, while we evaluate, while we use data to look at what would be the best use of potentially neighborhood stops, community stops, park spots, we need to provide things in the meantime. So that is what we are doing. So we have, in February, we have 10 preschools that have already agreed to, you know, have our services there. That was a thing that we pulled away from during COVID. We stopped serving the preschools. We're bringing that back. So we are bringing back services in a way that works with our current staffing and resources. Andrea?
So a lot of libraries, we have a bookmobile. One of the reasons is because we cover so many square miles. I mean, which is probably more square miles than most library districts. Or 2 of our board members live closer to the state line than they do to the library. And, you know, people do not only pick up books at the bookmobile, they drop books off. Can we do something, some sort of mitigating factor? Because we already have one remote book pickup, I think over by the Jewel or on the west side of town. Can we add more remote book pickups and at least relieve people from having to drive here to drop off books?
And we can look into it, certainly.
I mean, I don't think that's nearly as expensive as some of the other things. And at least it solves the problem of I mean, before they would bookmobile, I'm guessing they drop off and pick up every time. You know. But now at least they won't have to go one way.
Celeste?
So I was online, and correct me if I misunderstood, but from when I looked online on our website, it looked like there's a schedule, and maybe, is that the current schedule for the bookmobile, or is that the proposed schedule?
That's current.
That is current, okay. So then we wouldn't have that moving forward.
Correct, correct.
I have to ask, the preschools, I know we already serve. Isn't that what the van is for our depository collections?
We do deposits, and they have requested to have services like programming. So we are going to provide an early literacy program to the preschools in our district, starting in February.
Love the idea, and I have to ask again, we're talking about the same thing, but can't we use our existing resources, the van program that we already have, to service those types of programs? You don't need a large machine that everybody stands outside of.
That wouldn't be in utilizing the large bookmobile. So that is the other thing. So to extend the life of the bookmobile, we are going to utilize the van in a lot of new innovative ways. So we are going to use it for these lobby stops that we have proposed. So we're going to use the van to go to senior centers with mobile carts. So Miguel has outfitted the van with carts that can be raised or lowered with hydraulic. And it'll have materials that are specific to whatever audience that we are going to see. So if we're going to a senior center, we can have mobile carts that we bring into the facility. It would give those patrons the ability to have a traditional browsing experience of the library without leaving the safety of their facility, without having to go onto the bookmobile, which is unsafe, without having to go through a parking lot that's potentially icy. So it is truly reaching patrons that we haven't been able to in this way before, who have
But
barriers to service.
again, this is something we've already funded. We've bought the van explicitly for this purpose. Are you saying we don't have the people to staff both?
Not with our current model. No, we do not.
So we purchased a van without having people to staff it? That sounds like a gap.
George, we purchased the van like it was 2020 during the.
Yes. So we've had 2 years to find staffing.
But we also have a budget on how many staff we
True,
can hire.
but we haven't even had a request for more staffing.
Well, George, we've had some issues in that department with staff, so it's not quite that simple. And I will, say that staffing throughout the library the past 2 years has been extremely difficult. It's hard for everybody. It's pretty well documented that staffing is a huge
It's
challenge.
not just the library.
Yeah.
Just everywhere,
Anything else?
Yeah, I guess, I know if in this, we're gonna briefly touch on the new budget for the next, I can never say the word, fiscal year. So I guess I think too, I forgot who, maybe it was Catherine, when we're looking at 2023, 2024, is that where we as a board would have to ask ourselves those hard questions of budgeting and other things if it's something that we would want to bring back? Obviously, there's also staff and other considerations, but it sounds like this is the best recommendation from the staff and how to move forward, but I guess, I'm hearing from what we've been sharing and what, community members have been sharing, if there is that desire to figure out if there's a way to bring that back, would that be a conversation for 2023, 2024?
Sure. We have the funds that we have. We can look at the budget, see what we can do, but it's a challenge with the funds that we have and the staffing that we have. There's no question about that.
Can we continue to discuss this at our next committee of the whole?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to go past 8 o'clock because we have almost an hour left. Anyone else want, you got 6 minutes.
But if we're going to continue discussing it, then we need to make a pause that we're not going to do it, right?
It sounds like
Otherwise-
we've got at least February and March scheduled for events.
May not be able
Right.
to change that
Sounds
at
like we
this
have to have the
point.
staffs back on.
And if you think about it within the fiscal year, it seems to me like we should go ahead and with the changes, and then, as Celeste said, when we're doing the next budget, see if we can make alterations to accommodate bringing some of these things back.
The next budget year starts in
June.
5 months.
Yeah.
Which means then that the bookmobile is off-road for the rest of the year, till we start.
Basically, yeah.
No, it isn't
No.
actually.
Well,
So
off-road
the
to the
neighborhood
neighborhood
stops.
Off-road to our
stops.
neighborhood
To the
stops.
neighborhoods,
So
Current
The current
neighborhood.
schedule. However, we always have an altered schedule in the summer. And the summer schedule that we have planned with the full bookmobile is actually pretty extensive. So we have some things already on our calendar that will include one Tuesday a month at Variety of Parks.
I saw
We
that.
also have every Wednesday where we're going to be rotating, and that will be widely publicized. It will be on our calendar. We're going to utilize our events calendar on our website much more efficiently. We agree that it was somewhat cumbersome to find the bookmobile. The stops were too short. It wasn't always easy to know exactly with the scheduling where it was. So this is all something that we're looking at making much better, much more efficient, easier for the community to find us. And in order to do that, we need to pause to train staff and to get those procedures and those things in place. Because we do have 2 new full-time staff members who have just begun within the last 2 weeks. And we need to also, we had to alter schedules to get some weekend coverage. We had no weekend coverage at all in the department, and we didn't have daytime staffing. So in order to do any sort of service during the day, and to cover weekends with community engagement, which we've all identified as a big priority for the library, we needed to change those schedules. So we'll work on a lot of those things, but we will be much more visible, and this summer you will see the bookmobile in the community, as well as the van.
But this is not about visibility, this is about utilization.
And we are hoping definitely that we are going to have a lot more utilization based on going to the events where people already are. So much like at Frosty Fest, where we had 300 people came on our physical vehicle, we're going to go to events where
Did they
we
check
know-
out books, or were they just
They did
looking?
check out books.
I think, though, we're talking about 2 different things. There's a big difference between events and getting people on the vehicle, which is an important part of outreach. That's advertising the library. And then there's serving our population. The neighborhood stops are a direct service to our community. They're not just marketing. They're not for marketing. They're not a product of visibility for the library. They are part of our core function. So I think we need to continue to discuss how we keep our mobile branch running, not just a giant sign with the library's name on it.
I don't think we disagree, George.
All right. Time to move on. 2 minutes.
I just want to say, I think it's a bit frustrating that we're talking about this now, but then we don't have any opportunity to change or flex. So the fact that February and March is already set and communicate, it's hard to sit here and then not be able to change or influence the outcome. So if there's a way that we could socialize it more in the future among the board and with the community, I think would be ideal. Does anyone else feel the same?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
communication, I think,
Yeah.
needed to be clearer and more proactive.
I mean, there was some communication. I think maybe I didn't realize how quickly the changes were gonna maybe be.
I agree.
I remember Ryan mentioning that they
Yes,
were looking
yes.
at data and,
Right.
mobile, outreach, but I don't think I realized
I don't
that the
think
change
any
was
of us
gonna
realized
happen
that
at
this
the
is
beginning of
exactly what you're
2023, so
talking
I do think there was communication, maybe, maybe there
The
needs
timing
more
of it
questions
as well,
about that.
yeah.
Okay. Time to move on. Let's see, where are we now? New business. So, minutes of the December 13th meeting and exec session minutes. Everyone see the exec session? Okay, these are on new business because Bonnie
Was not
had to
here.
miss both meetings and she needs to abstain. So who would like to make the motion?
I move to accept the executive board minutes for the appropriate date as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
Me. I'll abstain.
All right. Engagement of a new auditor. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so, I think Andrea discussed at the previous board meeting, we started the process to a new auditor, and Andrea had a conversation with Chris McClure of ATA Group LLP, and they've offered a proposal, which is, we feel is a really good proposal, especially based on what we did in the last audit and some, what we expected in increase in fees. So the idea here is for the board to accept this proposal if the board is comfortable with that. Because as the board knows, our options are limited in terms of who's going to do a public audit for the library. So, Andrea, you have anything to add?
Based on our survey of other libraries, the price is reasonable, and we know them, they know us. You know, like I said, the first question they ask is, Doug's still there? So, and, you know, we got our AAA board rating and bond rating and all of that, I think, while these people were our auditors, so.
How many years ago were they our auditor?
4 years ago, so
Just
they
4,
can't be
okay.
our auditor for 3
Right,
years.
right.
So they were our auditor for 8 years, then we had the new auditors
Take
who
a break.
just fired us, and then,
So we're
it's
back
not our
with-
fault.
No, but
They
we're
only-
back with someone we
They
were
wanted to
with in the past.
concentrate on schools, they only had 3
Right,
libraries, so.
right.
I think if we accept these auditors, they'll be our auditors for 8 years, nobody likes to change.
Right.
But I think it'll be a very easy transition because Doug's worked with them before.
And they know us, yeah, okay. Okay.
Is the number in here?
Yeah, on page
Yeah.
31, so it's 16,000 for the audit and $400 for the extra letter that goes at the front, which is like, what, 5 pages? It's very technical. It's a bargain at $400, if you ask me. No, none of us want to write it.
Okay, I move that the board accept the proposal of ATA Group LLP for audit services for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
I second.
I have one question. The contract that we're seeing here just says the name of the company. Shouldn't there be a person
The
on here
name?
somewhere?
Yeah.
Auditing firms are only allowed to be owned by people,
So why is it signed ATA Group LLP?
because that's what our financial statements are signed by ATA Group LLC.
Okay,
That's normal.
just check. That seems really weird to me.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Flores,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, per capita grant.
This is something we discussed in the past. Once again, it was kind of the same assignment from the state as the previous year to look over the standards. So, there's a typo that we found on page 2, which I fixed. Any questions about this in terms of what we need to do to?
I think this is more on the state side, but I know that, just make sure that they're fine with it still saying Jesse White. I don't know if they, you know.
Yeah, there's no
I know,
updated forms
but,
listed.
you know, sometimes.
The state of Illinois has not updated its forms yet.
State of Illinois.
I think they should revert to a title rather than a person.
That would also require updating the forms.
Yes, but only once.
Okay, who'd like to make this motion?
I move the board, I move the board approve the 2023 per capita and equalization aid grant application as presented.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call.
Flores,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, financials for November, page 41.
Okay. So, I've been through them. Does anybody else have any questions? I have a couple questions, but before I start, does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, one question on the variance report. The increased charges for telephone for hotspot services.
That was one of my
Yeah,
questions.
Same here.
So I assume that the charges are going up, but this is being offset by the grant we've received, is that correct?
Or I was wondering, because it looks like they were unexpected, didn't we budget for this, or did we add?
Yeah, it's been,
How is it different than what we budgeted for?
Smarty maybe can talk better this than I can, I was listening to the recording, but it has been a challenge in terms of receiving funds, for that grant. So I think it does have to do with the timing, but I can get a better answer and email the board. But I believe that's it, off the top of my head.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you, George, for eliminating one of my questions. My other question is, still, we have a lot of cash that we don't need at the moment sitting in the Illinois Funds Reserve. It's more than half of our cash balance.
What page are you on?
On page 50. So I would really like to see a plan of how we're moving that into CDs until we need the money, because, you know, it's a pittance, as I said, but, you know, it's at least a pittance is slightly more than near nothing.
Yeah, I'll find out.
Because I think I've been asking this question for 4 or 5 months now.
Well, we were doing I thought, a timely job of moving it, but I'll find out what the discrepancy is in the number.
Okay, what I'd like to see is not just a discrepancy, I'd like to see is,
like
tell me how much of this, you know, because in any one given month, we don't have that much expenditure. I mean, they're sizable, but nowhere near that amount. So,
Okay.
I mean, if we look at our expenditures in 1 month, I can't put my finger on it, but, you know, this is almost a year's cash, and we only need 1/12 of it every month. So at the very minimum, we could put it in a 30-day CD.
Yeah,
But
I hear you.
I mean,
Okay, I'll get you a more detailed.
by the committee of the whole, I'd like to have some, at least, thumbnail sketch of what they're planning to do.
Okay. Got it.
That was all of my questions.
Okay, anyone else who'd like to make this motion?
I move the board approve the monthly financial statements from November 2022 as presented.
A second.
Discussion? Let's have a roll call.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Hamilton, Cotsini,
Aye.
Flores, Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Joe, the door is closed for some reason. Should I open them?
I closed it because
Oh.
they're out there, it was noisy. That was the
Okay.
only reason I
It's
closed it.
unlocked, right? People can get in.
Yeah, they
Fine.
can,
Yeah, just have it open up. Since it's
I
open.
can
Okay.
just put
Yeah.
the.
All right.
Just checking, because I thought we had to keep them open during.
I just thought it was loud. Okay, so where are we? We're on
103.
ordinance, the
Tax
ordinance.
abate,
Yeah, this is,
Page 103.
you know, part of, you know, our financial, you know, procedures to abate the. Yeah, I mean, any questions about this? This is a standard board adoption of an ordinance, because we have already budgeted to pay debt service. out of
And we have
general-
enough time to file it, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Just don't want to repeat that one.
We do this every year
every year, yeah.
so that we don't tax the citizens for this. Otherwise, we end up taxing people for things unnecessarily.
For new board members, and if you're new to this, sorry, I'll clarify better. We have to pass this ordinance once a year to state that we have enough funds in our reserve to pay for our debt service. Otherwise, the county will automatically add an additional tax to all of our residents to force them to pay for our debt service, which makes people very grumpy when they pay taxes twice. So this is how we prevent them doing that.
And passing it is pro forma. Okay, who would like to make the motion?
I move that the board approve ordinance 2022-2023-6, tax abatement for debt service as presented.
I'll second that. Further discussion? Let's have a roll call.
Arnold,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Flores,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, quarterly review of self-evaluation and goals, so just flip to the second page, and the ones that we had for this year. So, board succession planning, thank you to Wendy and Catherine. That's in process. Board knowledge, thank you to Andrea for increasing our board knowledge. We've had 2 or 3 sessions this year, so that's great. And financial, the treasurer's binder is still
Still haven't done it, everybody.
I have to say, I'll just, you know, it's coming up now, we're going to start looking at what we want to do for next year. And this has made me think about this in this way, which is that, first of all, we usually identify 3 goals per year, and I'm wondering if we should make it 2. I'll just throw this out there for you to ponder, because when we think about this, when we really do it, you know, we can make these decisions, but I'm just throwing these ideas for your consideration. And the other one I think we really need to look at is when we have a board goal that falls solely to one person. And I know the year we did these, originally, I think it was your idea, correct, to document our board knowledge?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So there were 6 binders, and because we had 2 people who were new on the board who had jobs that they'd never had before, I was the only person who could do the other 5. Okay, and I don't know what I should have said, well, why don't we do 3 this year and 3 next year? I didn't even think of it. So I think when we look at our goals, we need to kind of think about how much responsibility we're giving to an individual person. I mean, Andrea has a job that's practically 24/7. So I'm just throwing it out there, so when we actually talk about it, we can kind of factor that in when we pick our goals for next time. So that's our progress on that. Anything else to add to that?
I liked reading all of the year's
Oh,
worth of
yeah,
goals. That
it's
was pretty
interesting,
cool.
isn't it?
Especially if we
Yeah.
haven't, you know, been here all that time.
Yeah,
It's great
yeah.
to see.
Anyone else? Okay, strat plan update, 108.
Yeah, so this is the latest status of the strategic plan timeline. I know the board's desire is for us to get this done as expeditiously as possible. You know, when we had a great meeting of our internal committee for the strategic planning process, and I think one of the things we realized was that we had intended on going into this with the survey of the community to going with the 4 questions that we did back in 2019-2020, but we looked at them, we realized, okay, that's not really effective. It's not going to give us feedback we need to develop, you know, a good strategic plan in addition to, like, you know, get into, like, I see one of the side benefits of a survey is also it can inform the community on what you already have to offer. It's been brought up tonight that we need to do a better job of communicating our services to the community, and this is one of those tools we do that as a side benefit. So we're working on recrafting the survey. I have a rough draft I can share with the board in terms of where we're at with it and to get your feedback. But it's, you know, based on feedback from Maria Nava, our community engagement manager, we know this needs to be brief if we want people to fill it out. And we looked at the feedback we received from the last survey, even though we stalled in the middle of our plan, to see what were people giving us feedback about then, and trying to incorporate that into this to try to see if those things are still things people want or need, or if those things are not really relevant at this point in time. So I'll go ahead and pass this out. Take a look.
And Ryan, how are you thinking about getting it to the community in general?
We'll put it on the website, at different events that we go to, that type of thing in the library. in terms of a focus group, I think focus groups are important, but we don't have a strategic planning consultant hired for this process, and you have to have certain expertise to properly do a focus group. So we thought what we could do is do one with our community engagement task force, which is a really nice representation of our community already. And then to do a community cafe. Veteran board members might recall that in the 2015 process, we did these community cafe events where it's basically where the community comes together and they start off at a table and you have different questions and people change tables, and basically it's a conversation that leads you to some feedback about where we might take the direction of the library. Just as a, did anyone attend that back in 2015? Do you remember? It was in the community room. It was a really great event.
I think I did.
Yeah. So the questions last time, there's tell everyone your name, where you're here tonight, and your personal view of how the library should serve the community. Number 2, budget reality. How do we deal with flat revenues and rising costs? So that sounds familiar, right? Opportunities. What opportunities are we missing to empower people's lives to be better? How can WNPL do a better job of serving our community with resources available? And the future. What should WNPL look like in 10 years? So we could tweak those, but I think that will be a way for people to come and engage us. And not only do one for the public, but also one where we can invite our community partners and get their feedback on where we should go. In addition, we're doing an anonymous survey to staff, because one of the things we want to do is make sure we're doing a good job of supporting and retaining staff. And once we have gathered our input with this timeline, the idea would be in late April to May, we would review the plan, come together, discuss it, and then develop a plan together. I think that's where the board, the last couple of meetings, we've kind of talked about a time for the board to come together and meet and talk, and I think it makes sense for staff to gather the data from the community and engage the community, and then we can have those conversations. It would still give us enough time to implement anything into the budget process. It would be a little bit late in the budget, but it still would give some time to implement some things we saw that was pressing. So, any questions about this process? This is the board's process, so this is, obviously your baby.
How do we get input from non-users, current non-users of the library?
How do you reach them? Yeah. How do you reach them?
How are we going to I ask this question every time one of these surveys go out. And, we have focus groups for people who are going to come to the library,
Yeah.
but there are lots of people who don't use the library. Someone like me might really appreciate knowing that they could get audiobooks, or that they can get books from the night delivery, or, somebody can pick up books for them. Here's what I like, could you please make a recommendation? Because they're too busy, or they're home with toddlers, or whatever it is. How do we reach them to find out what they need?
That's, we can, part of it is by looking at the data that we have, census data, the data, the public data that's out there. But, it is always a challenge. I'm eager to hear Celeste, because I think part of one of her responsibilities is to do that. But, that's one of Maria's roles as community engagement manager, is to engage as parts of the community.
Yeah, I'm hearing things like this, but I'm not hearing anything concrete. How are we going to reach them?
One thing we've discussed is putting a QR code in our newsletter that goes to every household in the district with a direct link to the survey. So whether you're a user or not, that goes to your household.
And would the survey also be in Spanish?
Yes. Yeah.
And will you put with the QR code that we're particularly interested in your feedback if you don't use the library?
We haven't developed that language yet. It's something
But
we would consider.
But, it is a huge task, and not an easy one. And really, it's one of those ones where we need to try to be at events where people don't use the library are, and try to engage in the conversation if they want to talk to us too. That's the other thing too. Just because you find people who use the library doesn't mean they're going to give you any feedback. A lot of people.
Yeah, but especially if we don't ask them.
Oh, I know. But that is the great dilemma, the great question. And the reason I think it gets asked all the time is because there's no easy answer. So I'm definitely.
You have to have a plan, even though there's no easy answer. That doesn't mean we can't accomplish it. Even if we had to go to neighborhoods and knock on their doors to say, we have that knowledgeable map where we can see hot neighborhoods who use us a lot and neighborhoods who don't. I wouldn't mind going knocking door to door on 10 houses and saying, hey, I'd really appreciate you filling out this survey.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, so are you suggesting we try to recruit volunteers I mean, I'm not.
I'm saying that there is a way to ask people. They
Right.
don't need to do it. We can't force people to do it.
Right.
But
Catherine, that's a
I
good-
don't think it's an impossible hurdle.
It's not an impossible order. I'm asking for your feedback on how to accomplish it, because
Yeah.
it's a great point, and I don't have the answer, so
Yeah, I mean, if we needed, I mean, it wouldn't take that many volunteers to each knock on 10 doors, even if I might get one person to fill it out of 10 people.
Well, and incentivize them. Here's a $5 gift card. Come
There's
to
no budget for that,
the,
Kathy.
do a raffle, I don't know.
Ways to incentivize
Yeah,
them.
a chance for a raffle. I
Yeah.
think. There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, get your name put in a book. Because you know how we have those like plaques that go in books if you make it $25. Yeah. That doesn't cost us anything.
Get your picture with Andrea.
That will cost us a lot.
No one will fill out the survey.
What's I guess maybe to Andrew's question, I don't know if it would be the next meeting, but if that would be too soon, but it sounds like this is gonna be led by Maria, so I don't know if there's, or no?
It's not just
Oh.
led by Maria, no. But
Okay, so like the group that's doing this, maybe there could be a proposal of what outreach is gonna be done to, maybe people that don't service us. I know I saw our newsletter, and that was my question, if it goes out to everyone. We've got, the chamber is always advertising and posting stuff, I don't know. I know it's hard to get on paper, that stuff that's going mailed out, because it's usually months in advance that you have to either pay or like talk to. I know there's a Gurney newsletter, right, so depending on the timeline, there could be multiple ways where this goes out. I mean, do people actually read those things? I mean, I do, but I don't know how many people actually open that and read that, right? And then with the schools, I think there are different ways, and maybe that's more, as the team thinks about that and, checking in with us. And, you got Andrea on the record that she'll knock some doors, so.
I'm 100% serious. I will knock on 10 doors. You tell me where to go and I'll do it.
One concern I have about us communicating this to the larger population through our newsletter, I don't know if anyone's noticed, our newsletter only goes out in English. Even if the survey is in Spanish, how can we read that there is a survey to take when about 40% of our population now is Hispanic?
It's a problem, and we've discussed it, and we're making, efforts to address it in a lot of different ways, with staffing, with,
Yeah, I mean,
social
Well,
media.
this is something simpler to solve, though. If you're trying to
Oh, absolutely.
communicate
And,
a short message, you can include a Spanish language postcard. Yes, we need budget for that.
No, but we don't need budget for over the cue card to be printed out in English and Spanish.
you probably, George, along those lines, I think it would be, when you want to do some targeted marketing, like, for example, Park City, could we mail postcards to those individuals in Park City and ask them to engage in the survey?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can look at areas, but even if we target a postcard mailing to areas that are historically low engagement. And we can have that a double-sided postcard that has English on one side and Spanish on the other.
Because then it gets them back to
Yeah, but that also takes us down a rabbit hole, because I worked with the city of Waukegan for broadband, and they did the old style, like mailed the surveys to people, because we were asking questions about broadband access, right? So then we can't send out a QR code and a
Right,
postcard,
right.
because
They don't have
presumably
internet
they don't have
access.
access
Good
to.
point.
How did
So,
it
yeah.
go in terms of the response rate, Celeste?
I can get back to you, I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
offhand, Yeah.
Because that's always the concern too.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I mean,
how
it's-
effective
it was
but-
costly.
But, you're right, that's another way to reach people that you.
I think as long as the survey is mobile-friendly, that shouldn't be an issue, though. We're at the point of penetration where virtually every household has a mobile phone. Even if they don't have anything else, they'll have a mobile phone. So we can at least have that option.
Be surprised. Lake County Broadband started a committee. They had a map of all the areas that don't have access to Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi is one thing, but
Yeah.
you'll find what we've seen, and just in the industry, is that mobile access is historically, or has now reached the point of penetration where it's higher than any other type of access. even if you don't have broadband, you can still get a low-quality mobile phone.
Okay, move on. All right, we're on to succession planning, so,
So the succession planning is moving on. As you know, we did a skills matrix a few months ago, and based on that and some other information, I put together a succession plan document. It'll be included in the packet for the committee of the whole meeting, and so I strongly urge you to take a look at it before the meeting, because I'd like to have some conversation around some of the parts of it. There's a checklist. A few of the items have already been completed, but we need to look at completing the rest of them. There's a succession grid in there, so it lists the executive committee and the board committees and who's currently in what positions and what the succession plan is for those, and then for the board as a whole, what does the future look like? When do terms start and end, and then what does it look like for future terms? So give that some thought before we meet for the committee of the whole, so we can go over that, please. Any questions?
I'd just like to comment, we had a lot of library lovers here, maybe have future board members.
That's entirely possible. Good thinking.
okay, budget, 110.
Yeah, so this is the standard timeline we've used in the past, which, I think we've, I think in terms of it's an entire team in terms of the budget process. It's the board, it's staff. I think that Doug and I work really well together on this, and Andrea and I work really well together on this. And I know that Andrea and I both feel very firmly that we should have the budget approved and in place before the fiscal year begins. So that's what we're intending to do here. Tonight's a discussion, what the timeline will look like. And during the February committee of the whole, we'll be able to look at that on-site insight report, look at our capital needs coming up for the next, I think it covers 20 or 25 years. So the first couple of months, capital planning. Then in April, look at that, big picture initial presentation of the budget, start to dig down more in May, and then in June we can finalize the budget. So is the board agreeable to this timeline? Any thoughts, feedback?
Sounds good. Let me guess, it's going to be a tough budget year.
It's always a tough budget year, isn't it, Andrea?
Okay, all right, agenda items for February regular meeting.
Some policies, but I don't know which one.
I have down already that you had said we were going to do 3015.
That's on here. Material selection.
I need to pick from the full list.
Okay, well, just let me know,
Yeah.
okay? It doesn't matter. If you don't want to do that one, whatever one you want to prioritize, just tell me.
There's 18 to pick from.
Okay, so now it's time for public forum. It has the same rules as public comment. If anyone would like to speak in public forum, we have 15 minutes.
Hi, I'm Mallory Wizawati. I've lived in Gurnee for 37 years. I went to the bookmobile as a kid in my neighborhood on all different sides of Gurnee. I've lived on all sides. I also went to it when I was in preschool. I went to it in various different public events as well in the past. I have a 3.5-year-old. He is not appropriate to bring to the library. He is not appropriate to bring onto a bookmobile in a public event either. I love taking him places, I really do, but going to someplace like Frosty Fest or even Gurnee Days, we've gone to the Boo at the Zoo, I can't get him on the bookmobile. There's too many things going on. He's too overwhelmed and too rambunctious. There are 3 other kids on our street that are 3.5-year-old. We go to the bookmobile together every other week when it's there. There are 10 people minimum at our stop every week, every time that it's there. They can run there together. They can discuss their books excitedly together. They get 2 whole weeks to talk about the books that they've done together. At 3.5, that's wonderful for literacy. During the day, I am home alone with him. We have all those books to read. He is still asleep during story time here. He's wonderful, sleeps in. I can't get him to do those things during the day, going out with him, but in the evenings with his friends, being able to have that time at the bookmobile is his connection. That's his connection with his community. That's his connection with the librarians, basically. They bring the books. They brought Hanukkah books specifically for us during the holidays. They have books that they stock for us every time, making sure that we are serviced in our community. And I'm very sad that there wasn't transparency, that yes, we're thinking about changing things. Oh, we've already made the decision, we're gonna stop it, and we don't have time to discuss other options. We won't be able to utilize the bookmobile in the new proposed plan, and that's very upsetting to me, that my 3.5-year-old is gonna have to wait until he's in school to use those types of library services just because he's a rambunctious 3.5-year-old. I hope you reconsider some things.
Anyone else? Okay, other announcements. All right, who would like to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. 8:32.